right, it is 6 p.m. I will call this November 6th Town Council meeting to order. Welcome all those in attendance and all those tuned in online. I would like to say a hearty welcome to our council members, Donald Hunter, Sally Amos, Dan Dwyer, after their re-election bid yesterday, and we all look forward to continuing to do the people's work with you. So thank you. With that, do a roll call, please, Ms. McKay.
Mrs. Amos?
Here.
Mr. Reed?
Here.
Mr. Dwyer?
Here.
Mr. Parrott?
Here.
Mr. Yolen?
Here.
Mr. Hunter?
Here.
Mr. Hardy?
Here. Thank you. At this point, we'll roll into the invocation, which I will lead. You're welcome to join if so inclined, and not to if so inclined. And then Mr. Reed will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. All right. First item on the agenda is adoption of said agenda. Do I hear a motion to adopt the agenda as presented?
So moved. Second.
Motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Ayes have it. Next up, do we have anyone with a declaration of personal interest concerning any items on the agenda tonight? Not hearing any. We will move right into our audit presentation by Director Chris Murray of Brown, Edwards and Company. Welcome, sir.
All right. Well, good evening. Appreciate y'all having me tonight. I'd like to start by thanking y'all for having me, continuing the relationship with the town. I'd like to thank Julie for her hard work, another stellar audit this year. So I'll keep this high level, short and sweet for you guys. So you have 3 documents that we issued for the town. You got the annual comprehensive report. You got your financial analysis, which is more of a 5-year trend with different ratios and statistics. Then there's a letter called the accounting communication and required communication with governance. You notice those are in draft, and that's because we want to get them to you in time before the meeting. However, since that time, they have gone final with no changes from the draft. So what you see will be the final version. So your annual comprehensive report, that's well over a 100-page document. So when or if you're going to read that, I would start with more of the management discussion and analysis, the MD&A in there. That's a condensed version of your financial statements, and it gives you highlights, insights into the financials, as opposed to, and it puts it in a plain English version for you to look at. So that's where I would concentrate on. With that annual report, we issued a clean, unmodified opinion, which is the highest opinion you can receive, which is the opinion you've received the last several years or every year. In the back, there's something called a schedule of finding and question costs. So that's something that's like a 1-page snapshot report card you can look at. So it lets you know there's no material weaknesses, there's no significant deficiencies, there's no state findings, and no federal findings. So a fantastic report there. So it's a nice 1-page report showing a great year. Switching gears to your letters, we issued something called the Accounting Matters and Required Communication with you all. So that's really the required communication is a standard letter we have to issue. It lets you know what our responsibilities are during the audit. It lets you know what management's responsibilities are. It lets you know whether we had any disagreements with management, which there weren't any. And also where we identify any audit adjustments we found, which we're happy to say there weren't any of those either. There's also, in that, there's accounting and other matters. That's really just something we issue for value added of accounting things on the horizon. Luckily, we've gone through some big standards here recently. There's nothing huge in the next couple of years. That's typically with your management letter. But there is no management letter this year, and that's because there's no material weaknesses, no significant deficiencies, no new comments to issue. And the prior year comments we've had were resolved, the last ones were resolved last year, so we reported them last year, and now there's no new comments to add. So that just a testament to what the town's focus on the recommendations we made years back and implementing those over the years to the point where there is no management letter to issue this year. So I think that says a lot about the way things stand. A great report, no findings, no management letter. And I'll take any questions you might have.
You have any questions for Mr. Murray? Yeah, it looks like everything's going in the right direction. You like to see financial conditions continuing to improve and seeing debt service continue to go down.
That's right.
And having no material weaknesses and no deficiencies. Seems like folks are well on their way to hopefully a third award for reporting.
I believe so. Yep.
If there are no other questions for Mr. Murray. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, next up, we do not have any public hearings, but we do have public comment period. We have any signed up for the public comment period, Ms. McKay?
Jen Cox.
Well, good evening, everyone. Just wanted to provide a few updates on behalf of Longwood. This weekend is our second annual Homecoming and Alumni Weekend, so just wanted to give a few highlights and overviews if it's helpful for your constituents. This will be the largest recorded alumni event that we have. We have over 800 people registered to be back in town. Last year, we had 691 registered for comparison. We're going to do a welcome back event Friday evening in partnership with Farmville Downtown. So we're looking forward to doing more of those kind of activities and more of those partnering relationships with different events throughout the year. Moving into Saturday, that's our big day. Pine and Franklin Streets are going to be closed Saturday morning and early afternoon for our Lancer tailgate prior to the 3 p.m. tip-off for the men's basketball game. Again, just for perspective, last year we sold 56 tailgate spaces. This year, 92. So people are ready and very energetic about all things Lancer basketball. Of course, the community is encouraged to come and attend and the tailgate, and of course you can buy tickets and come to the game. And then my colleagues have had some wonderful student workers help reach out to our various restaurants to try to remind them. Not all of them are on our various email lists, and maybe not all of them are quite as in tune with this new event that will continue to be an annual event. So there's been phone calls the past day or two to make sure our area restaurants know that they can expect probably a higher foot traffic. So we expect for restaurants and retail establishments Saturday evening between 5 and 7, 5 and 8, they'll probably see a lot of foot traffic. And then Sunday we still have events, so don't worry. At noon we have the women's basketball game. It's also our Educator Appreciation Day, so everybody in the VDOE Region 8 schools, they were invited. And then I do have a link to kind of all those events, and I've sent that to the clerk, so I'm sure she can forward that out to you all, just in case your constituents have questions, but it's also posted online. And then just the other kind of highlight is our admissions open house is next weekend. That's Saturday, November 16th. That's our bigger admissions open house for the fall. So again, I think sometimes folks don't necessarily think about it like, okay, it's an open house, but this is one of our big ones for the fall. So we expect a lot of prospective families and their students around campus and around town when they're done touring. So those are just some big updates in November. We're rocking and rolling through the semester.
Thank you. And thank you for sending out the alert to the local restaurants about the heavier foot traffic. I know they appreciate it. Anyone else signed up for public comment, Ms. McKay?
No, sir.
All right. We'll close public comment period and move into Next item, which is approval of the consent agenda. You have the draft minutes of the October 2nd work session and October 9th regular council meeting in front of you. If there are no changes, do I hear a motion to accept the consent agenda as presented?
I make a motion we accept the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Ayes have it. Next up is the finance report, September 2024 finance report from Ms. Julie Moore.
Good evening. So you have the work session reports for September this month, and the council report, which is a finance report, you'll get next month because of how we moved everything up. So next month you'll get 2 reports at council for October and November. But with what you have the September charts and reports, and this is the 3rd month in our fiscal year 25. The revenue to budget, we should be at 25%, but as you can tell, we're not. And as we've talked about in the past, we have a lot of things like the real estate taxes and business licenses that we get once a year. So we're going to always lag behind until we start collecting those. The other fund that we kind of lag behind is the airport fund, and that's because its primary driver is grant money, and it depends on when we have projects and when we ask for reimbursements when we get that money, and the budget doesn't realize that. It thinks it's like every month you're getting money in. When you look at revenue compared to prior year, there's only 2 funds that are slightly below last year, and that's the general fund, and as we've talked about in the past, it's probably going to always lag behind because of some taxes that we get delayed, whereas in last year we've already reported it. And then the other fund is the airport fund, and again, that's because of the AV, gas, and jet fuel. We didn't sell as much as we have last year. When you look at expenses to budget, we're below the 3-month mark. And when you look at expenses of prior year, we're slightly above last year. And that's because we've put forth effort to get some items, like capital items, earlier this year than we did last year. Last year, a lot of things were delayed. This year, they were not. So that's why it looks like we've just spent more up front. And then later in the year, we'll catch up. Do you have any questions?
Any questions for Ms. Moore at this time?
And I would like to point out that he didn't, if you look at the draft audit, there is one misspelled word in the letter of transmittal, but that got fixed in the final version. So I just wanted to let you know that if you spot the misspelled word, just know it got fixed.
Excellent. Attention to detail. All right, we appreciate that. Do I hear a motion to approve the finance report as presented?
So moved. Second.
Motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Ayes have it. Next up is old business. 3 items up for discussion. The first being proposed ordinance number 234, most popularly referred to as fences. Mr. Davis?
So we've had a couple meetings on fences. Council had asked, the last meeting looked at the majority, looked at conditional use permit as a method for all fences. After going back and reviewing, and Mr. Elder and I discussing it, and could there be pieces that could be in it and a conditional use? It goes back to one of them we had in our packet along the way, the City of Lexington. And so in your packet tonight, you do have the ability to set regulations that people would follow. And then if they wanted anything additional or larger than that, they would then seek a conditional use permit. And that kind of meets a little bit of the intention of not everybody having, we did have a discussion about everybody having to pay to get a fence of a conditional use permit. And then some type of, I think someone on council had mentioned, is there a way to set parameters for when you make your decision. Well, if you set parameters, you might as well set the ordinance with criteria. So we're bringing back to you for just discussion this evening. If this helps solve resolve some of that conversation in the past. If so, next steps would be, it would have to go through the full process again of the planning commission reviewing, a public hearing there, their referral or recommending or not recommending, and then the council having their own. But I'm open for any questions.
So is that the question, though, that needs to be decided whether or not to send this as it
Yes.
sits back to the planning commission to?
Yeah, I mean, discussion about it
Yeah.
in general, Mayor, for you all. And then if there is a majority, I should say, that wants to move this particular one forward, or do we want to go back to the drawing board? It's back for discussion purposes. Or do we just want to cancel it altogether and call it a day?
Okay, thank you. Floor is open.
Can I start? So I want to cancel it altogether. You know how I feel. I really want to go back to the original reason that we're here, that I believe the fence was erected on Longwood Avenue. And I believe that the reason that was given that a fence was erected that was impairing the visibility of a neighbor's site of traffic, I believe. And I asked the issue, I think, to Ashley. I said, was the fence erected because there was bickering? And I believe it was alluded to the fact that, yes, it was bickering, if I'm not correct. So I'm clarifying tonight if that was the reason. Was it bickering? Because we've been through a whole long process here for just bickering. I want to know if that's the real reason. And I think that we just need to scrap this altogether. We heard from business owners at the mayor's roundtable the other day to make the process easier for our citizens, and I just feel like we're making things complicated. If we throw a conditional use in there, that's $500. We need to make things seamless, and so I say we scrap everything, but if somebody would answer that question for me.
I don't know, I can let Ashley speak to the bickering piece. I don't know that that's the point that is substance of this. It's more of someone installed a fence without having a permit for it. And by doing that, it obstructed view, and it was partially in the front of the house, which made me realize we have no ordinance regulating anything to do with fences in residential areas. And that there is a need for that for the future, to be proactive, in that we don't have ones that pop up. And I'll be the first one that gets the phone call from one of the 7 of you or a constituent of yours that lives next door and says, how did this person put a 10-foot fence in their front yard? We don't have an ordinance. But that's solely up to you all. What I'm trying to solve is a potential issue. Instead of retroactively, you can't do anything about it.
And my part, once again, is the safety. With that 10-foot fence in the front yard, and the men and ladies in blue that have to go in and serve a warrant, and they get ambushed, nobody's up here is going to be any happier about it than me, because it should not happen, and we should have something in place beforehand, instead of those people going in blind.
Well, I've been in favor of an ordinance all the way through. This accomplishes the majority of what my concerns were, but it's also a compromise of sorts, which I could support this ordinance if it's this way it would come back to us for a vote. The good thing is that it would avoid folks who want to 8-foot fence or less from having to buy a conditional use permit. Anything over that, I don't believe very many people would go over that, but we have to put something in place for at least that to be reviewed, and I think that's what's being proposed here. So I like it. I think it's a good move.
I'm going to chime in because I was the one that said, hey, I thought Lexington looked pretty good. And if we kind of match that one, even though I'm not a big fan of the height restrictions, I could probably get behind something like that and make that, as Dan says, make that compromise. The Lexington one has 7 feet front and back, and anything above that conditional use, whereas this one that we've gotten is 8 feet in the back, 4 in the front. And if it was to match those height limits, then at 7 feet front, residential 7 feet period, that's kind of where I feel. I'm not, because if somebody wants to put a 6 foot that's a wrought iron fence that's pretty, and they're going to have to, I know they're going to spend a lot of money for a wrought iron fence. I get that. But, the time and effort that they would have to go through to do a conditional use to make something a couple of feet taller, whereas if it was 7 or 8 feet all the way around, and then we could, be able to allow stuff to happen a little faster in that situation, in the whole permitting and allowance thing. Thanks.
All right, so that was 3 different opinions. Anyone else want to weigh in?
Why not? I'll say that I was the one who asked for the conditional use permit, and upon reviewing what has been presented tonight to us, as Councilman Dwyer and Mr. Hardy on here both referred to, I am willing to try to be flexible. I don't know that it's right or wrong, but I feel like it's middle ground. And I feel like this is a happy median for us to be able to move forward with it. That's just my 2 cents worth.
So it would have to go back to planning commission, then come back to us, correct?
Yes, sir, but I don't want to, if I don't have a majority that agrees with this, I don't want to waste the money on advertising this 2 more times. So I need.
Can we do a straw poll?
Whether you vote it up and down doesn't make it law tonight.
Yeah.
It just means this is what we want to take to the planning commission or not. But yes, up and down.
Yeah. So how many in favor are sending this to the planning commission? As is. As it states. 1, 2, 3.
Are you talking with the conditional use?
As it sits in front of us, yes. Mr. Reed? All right, so we got 4 in favor of sending it to planning commission as sits. Okay. Discussion number 2. Water and sewer tap rebate ordinances. We have had this discussion. We brought it up in the last meeting concerning water and sewer taps, and there have been moments where we have extended rebates. There have been moments where we've cut or reduced the water and tap fees. We've got examples of those times. We've got examples of the results of those times, and then we've even got a sheet that lays out where we fall in relation to other localities. Mr. Davis?
Yes, that was a great summary, and I'm going to leave it at that. The only thing you do not have is that I was remiss in putting in here is that I have gotten to help your conversation and or future decisions is a figure from Mr. Atkins about what an actual tap for water and sewer combined, so doing a tap fee for water and a tap fee for sewer, cost in regards to labor, equipment, and material, and it's between $5,600 and $5,700
Per tap or for both?
for both. So $8,000 if you do water and sewer, the town doesn't clear, but less than $3,000.
I gotta ask, how can all these other locations do it for less than what we're doing, less than what you're quoting as far as our cost is concerned?
I can't answer that from those other localities. I'm not sure what they do. What I will tell you is that there are localities that don't have as sufficient of enterprise funds as we have. And what I mean by that is if you all know, enterprise funds are supposed to operate similar to a business in that they generate revenue for the purpose of not only covering our costs, but also having the ability to have funds and reserves for emergencies and capital improvements. There's many localities, and I think Ms. Moore can share with you from her auditing days. We were the opposite of what I'm getting ready to describe to you. There's localities that do not raise their rates in an effective way over time as far as the usage rates or tap fees. And they become where they have to take funds from the general fund to fund their enterprise funds, which is a no-no. We did the opposite, which is also a no-no in the past. We don't do that anymore. We used enterprise funds to make up for the general fund, which is even worse. So I guess my point in that, Mr. Parrott, is that how we operate is how we should be doing business, in that over time, I think it was 2 or 3 years ago, we raised the water and sewer usage fees. And so every so often you need to look at what you have and what is revenue you have coming in and what's going out and what you have in reserves, so that you are able to keep those as sufficient as possible to do those water and sewer line replacements in the future. As far as what other localities do, I don't know. They might subsidize from their general fund. I can't answer that.
I just see, when I look at the figures that you presented to us as far as in comparison, in most cases, we're almost twice what anybody else is as far as water and sewer
And I
fees.
would say we tried to get this to you by this meeting. If we had had more time, we probably would have looked at more localities to give you an idea. The other thing is there's places that operate under a water authority and or a sewer authority where the authority charges those tap fees and rates. They don't, in other words, some localities don't operate their own water and sewer lines and or production and treatment. So we had some of those. I asked Ms. Moore to take those out because that doesn't benefit us in this discussion, because an authority is totally different. I'll give you an example. I was part of one in my previous locality. We were allotted X amount of water allocation along with each other locality that was in that authority, and we paid for that amount of water. The lines were on us. However, there are places where the lines are also owned by the authority, just like South Boston did away years ago with their own water and wastewater, and they took it to an authority. They took it to the extent that they don't even own the lines in the ground. The authority owns the lines in the ground. So they pay them for all of it.
It looks like this was a pretty standard practice for about 6 years, at least according to this. This goes back 6 years, fiscal year 14, 15 to fiscal year 20 to 21, where every single fiscal year there was some sort of break. That break resulted in, this is just for the public's edification, resulted in revenue loss anywhere from just 3,000 because there wasn't a whole lot going on to 114,000 revenue lost. But it did spur, according, we can see that it spurred some tap hookups, right? So there was some movement. And it looked like it was pretty standard practice up till fiscal year 2020, 2021. Yeah, just information for the public.
I'm with Tommy on this, Mr. Parrott, on this about the cost. I realize that it is a cost for us there is a cost of doing business. And I would hate for us to operate at a loss, but I would love to see some incentive for builders. And in an apartment, would they only have one tap? Like an apartment building would have one tap. And then or we would get a tap fee for each apartment.
So we only did figures for
Individual residential?
for residential being
Okay.
Single dwelling, which would be an R1, R2. Apartments are an R3, which are commercial.
Okay.
Commercial is a whole different fee. They're larger lines. They're more tap fees.
Definitely.
Plus it's cost plus.
Much more expensive.
So it's much more expensive than this. So apartments are not even, this was just because we had the conversation based on, this came up based on Ms. Amos when Mr. Lapp was here last, and suggested, would this be of a benefit? So he's only building single-family homes. So we only looked at single-family homes, being that was the basis of the conversation.
I had kind of had a thought, and I'm just throwing an idea out here and take it as anybody may. I was thinking if somebody was doing one, not really much of a discount, if they're doing, I'll just call it 1 to 5, and I'm just throwing an idea, 25% discount off of the fee for a certain amount of time. If it's a developer that's doing 6 to, 20 or 25, then they could get a better discount, like a 50%. And if it was 25 and above, since they're going to be building over that time period a lot of houses, which is going to generate people being in town and generate taxes for their property. It's also going to generate food tax. It's going to generate a lot of other things for these folks being here. If they're doing 25 or more, do a 75% reduction. And I know that seems like a lot, but it would really, that's just my thoughts on an incentive. And I just still think we should have some sort of incentive, and that's an idea, and everybody can bat that one around.
Any other discussion at this
Well,
time?
I'll make this comment, and I'm just kind of talking like Johnny is here now. If what he's proposing, discounts within reason, I could possibly go along with, not to the 75% discount rate, but I'd also want to know if we would be smarter to possibly, heaven forbid, increase our water and sewer rates and try to make up the difference of what we're proposing to give to get back. And I'm just talking out loud on this.
So at that point, you're putting the cost on people that currently have property on the backs of them for somebody else.
Duly noted. Good thought. Thank you.
I understand what we need to do in reference to trying to help out the business owners in reference to the dwellings. And I think it's something that's probably not going to be solved tonight because we probably need to come up with a standard way instead of someone doing a new project and then each time we have to come back to the table to see what we're going to do. So I don't know how do we have just a meeting in reference to this so we can hash it out? Or, because it's going to take a minute to hash this out to do it the right way so that we can take care of the people coming in to do the business.
Let me ask this question as well. I like Mr. Hunter's idea. Would it behoove us to look to see if there are other localities who do something in ways of being creative with their water and sewer for multiple, say, 50 or 25 or 20 or 10?
Can I chime in on that? We were at a presentation, I said something to the mayor about Danville has something in place. So if we could look at Danville, they presented that at our VML. I know they're a huge area, much bigger than us, but it's worth looking at.
Was it tied to residential or was it tied to business development?
No, I think it was residential when we were talking about that housing, the housing complexes. Was that, am I right? Yeah, okay.
Also, thank you. Also, since we're going into this, and I think we want the right answer, can we delve into supply as well? Go back down to the root of it and see how they're able to, I know that combines with you're talking about the operating but what's the actual cost of these supplies, starting at the material, at the basics? And then, of course, adding labor to the equation, just trying to figure out why ours are so expensive and if there's a way, like everyone else, to get it back down to reasonable.
And my question is, do we have supply on hand or do we have to, once it goes down, we purchase? Because typically purchasing in bulk, you'll get a different price than person a little bit at a time.
It also depends on how far the connection is. Sewers is traditionally on one side of the road, water's on the other side of the road. I mean, all of that comes into play. So it's not, this is an average. This isn't a set amount for every single project. But yeah, I mean, can we get down to the brass tacks and tell you what a pipe costs? We can do that.
And I guess what I'm asking is when people come in as a gentleman here, as a developer, do we have stuff on hand or do we still have to purchase the stuff in order to do the connections and everything?
We typically have some on hand, and then when we run low, we then do a purchase.
Okay, because I didn't know that needs to be added in the capital, just to buy bulk because we know it's coming or what have you.
I mean, you don't want too much sitting around for a long period of time, so we have, yeah.
Well, it sounds like there's a general interest in diving into this topic in a future work session with a little more depth. I think everybody's interested in continuing to see some development in town and any ways that we can get to incentivizing that to happen. Sounds like all folks are in favor of diving into that. Any other further discussion on water and sewer? That moves us into the last discussion in old business, which is the Zion subdivision, Lane Street. Mr. Davis.
You have the plan in front of you. I'm sure Mr. Lapp would like to move forward and know which method he is to move forward. So you have to, at some point in time, you've got to approve. I will say that the interpretation, as I said the last time, in how it's written, is probably not the best, and that we are going to be bringing that and making it a lot more clear. I think at this point, it's probably up to council to decide. Do you want to go with what you think is the intent of it, to have it, you know, a sidewalk fronting each property? Or do you, for this situation, since he did receive in the preliminary stages, which isn't binding, a letter from staff saying on one side of the road, and that this project moved forward with how he developed it based on that. So it's more of what council want, how you all want to move forward with this particular project.
We already had a public hearing on this?
You don't need a public
Don't need a
hearing for
public
this.
hearing. Okay. Right, so the question.
Technically, as long as it meets all of the zoning requirements, you can't turn it
Yeah.
down.
Right. So the question being whether we're okay letting this roll forward with the understanding that there may have been there may have been some issues on our end, interpretation, and that the issue at hand is whether or not Mr. Lapp rolls with the plan that he proposed in front of us, right?
You need a motion on that?
I was gonna say,
Yeah.
I think the guy deserves a break. I think he was led to believe he'd met the requirements. I fully support him. I think he needs to be shown that even though we may have dropped the ball on our side, that does not constitute a fault on his side.
Well, I appreciate what Mr. Yolen brought up in reference to the sidewalks. I don't want to just let that go. But yet, this is something that we shouldn't be delaying him on, getting work done on, that he, moving forward, because time is money when it comes to doing projects.
And I'll say that I agree in that same sense. And the time, he is somebody that is ready to put a dozer and a track hoe on the ground in a week or so, where we have other folks that are sitting on stuff and not doing anything. And if we've got somebody that's ready to build houses and it's speaking to realtors locally, they're like, we need these houses now. So that's my 2 cents. I do like the sidewalks, but there again, same situation.
Do I hear a motion to move forward?
I'll make a motion that we allow Mr. Ben Lapp to proceed with it.
You approved the subdivision. And it needs to be a motion that you approve the subdivision plan.
Well, I'll make a motion that we approve the subdivision.
Second.
So a motion and second to approve the subdivision plat. Ms. McKay, can we get a roll call, please?
Mr. Reed,
Yes.
Mr. Dwyer,
Yes.
Mr. Parrott,
Yes.
Mr. Yolen,
No.
Mr. Hunter,
Yes.
Mr. Hardy,
Yes.
Mrs. Amos.
Yes.
On a vote of 6-1, the motion passes.
Thank you, Ms. McKay. All right, so then we'll go back to that ordinance and flesh it out a little bit. There you go. Thank you. Next up is new business. New business regarding what came before us earlier, which was the audit for fiscal year ending June 30th, 2024. I would entertain a motion to accept the audit for fiscal year ending June 30th, 2024 at this time.
So moved.
Go ahead.
Second.
Motion and second. Any additional discussion? Not hearing it. Mr. K, can we get a roll call, please?
Mr. Dwyer,
Yes.
Mr. Parrott,
Yes.
Mr. Yolen,
Yes.
Mr. Hunter,
Yes.
Mr. Hardy,
Yes.
Mrs. Amos,
Yes.
Mr. Reed.
Yes.
The motion passes.
Thank you. And congratulations to the Finance Department for another stellar audit and the entire town administration. Roll into Mr. Davis, Town Manager's Report.
So I will tag along with that of thanking Ms. Moore and her staff for the job that they've done this past fiscal year for that audit. When I first got here, I complained that we weren't seeing criteria in the audit by previous auditors that I knew, and I only know enough to be dangerous, that I know should have been in there. And so we went and changed auditing firms, and so we did have some things to fix. And it's been, a certain amount of time, and it does take time to change those things. But to have no management letter is a huge success in not having comments to answer. So I appreciate their diligence. Fall cleanup was a success. We had a little over 30 tons. So almost 25 was trash. About 4 was brush, 9 gallons of used oil, some metal, electronics, about a half a ton of tires. So it was a successful cleanup, and we appreciate the residents for doing that so that it doesn't build up and end up scattered throughout town or in their yard. Leaf season has started, obviously, as you probably see by your neighbors blowing their leaves, putting them, whatever they're doing, ready to get those picked up. And so as we've put out, we'll be going in areas, and we did some pre-cleanup before areas. Want to just say that our departments do outside of just their normal duties in the community. When asked to, recently the fire chief read at Prince Edward Elementary School for Literacy Month, and I think it's this week. They've been invited to the middle school, Prince Edward Middle School, to take part in a STEM activity to show how fire department uses STEM in their everyday operations. So it's pretty neat. ABM is all complete on a lot of things except for EV charging stations, some heating configuration at the shop, and they're currently working diligently on installing water meters. So you might have seen some people coming in the yard, taking one out, putting one in. So we hope to hopefully have all of it complete by December. And if you'll remember, then that's when, after everything's done, we get that year to realize what the savings are and that type of thing that they track. We received our first draft plan for the bathrooms and the splash pad, and we made some changes and sent that back. I usually have a little bit more, but we're a week ahead, so I will have some more information as it comes up. I'll email each of you.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Go around the room. Mr. Hardy?
Thank you, Julie. You're awesome. I appreciate everybody being here. One thing, Dr. Davis, had a couple more complaints just in general about the way that the sidewalks coming into town look, with grass growing up and stuff like that. If we could please hit that, I would love for us to have stuff like that looking good for when the alumni come in and the parents come in with their kids. It really behooves us for our town to be pretty.
Mr. Hunter?
Yeah, actually, I saw them working by the park today, cleaning the sidewalks. And they looked like they were doing a pretty good job with the shovels and everything. The Christmas tree lighting, what's the date?
22nd.
November 22nd.
All right, someone asked me, so I just want to make sure. That's all I have right now.
Mr. Yolen?
Just want to say thank you to Mr. Atkins. The Leaf crew and the new Leaf truck are pretty cool, doing a great job in the avenues right now, I think they are. And thank you for keeping the town clean.
Mr. Parrott?
I'm good, thank you.
Mr. Dwyer?
Not a thing, Mayor.
Mr. Breed?
I'm good.
Ms. Davis?
Good.
Quick wrap up. We had our VML annual conference in October. We celebrated Vice Mayor Mr. Reed's term as president of the Virginia Municipal League. We had a great time celebrating him and honoring him and the role he played there, shining a light on Farmville and doing good work at the Virginia Municipal League in our name. It was a great occasion. I had the opportunity to attend the legislative committee while there and talk about legislation coming up in the upcoming General Assembly session. And then came back and volunteered for the Virginia Children's Book Festival, which was a great time. Got to escort Karen Parsons around, who was actually in Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. And it was kind of a cool thing to show her Farmville and walk around. But the Virginia Children's Book Festival does such great work in our area. Juanita Giles as the director, introducing kids to books and getting them to see their idols and authors and illustrators. I had a meeting with Prince Edward County Administrator Doug Stanley, some stakeholders, and some Richmond developers about potential development in our area, kind of feeding off the Federal Reserve Bank coming to town and commenting about how they expected to see more development in our area. And so I was basically there to champion Farmville and sing our praises. And then had a meeting back at the Moton with the Bridge Builders Group, the youth in our area from Prince Edward County Schools and Fuqua, talking about public service. And it was a great time. It's always a great time speaking to the youth about public service. DWR meetings in Richmond, and then a Seed Innovation Hub tour. Got to tour the Innovation Hub in Midtown, and I'm very excited about the prospects there. The opportunities that the community and the college will have to brainchild future businesses and to explore that avenue is going to be awesome. And then we held a mayor's roundtable meeting here up in the Emergency Operations Center, and I thank everyone who showed up. I see a couple of new members in our audience who were there, and welcome you, and thank you for showing up here. But it was a good meeting. All of council was there, and we got to hear from some local business owners. And then the Halloween parade downtown, once again, great job by the Farmville Recreation Department and the Farmville Downtown Partnership downtown. So much fun seeing all the kids downtown, and I know many of us were out there hanging out. The tree lighting, I will reiterate, is November 22nd. It is one of my personal favorites, and I'd be remiss if I did not mention former council member Miss Sally Thompson. I think she played a role in that tree lighting ceremony happening, as well as our former mayor, Mr. Whitus. But that'll be on the 22nd, and I want to acknowledge that Jen Cox took off her Longwood hat for a second, put on her Farmville Chamber hat, and has assumed some leadership there, and we appreciate you. Thank you for doing that. With that, I'll conclude my mayor's report. I will say, once again, congratulations to our council members who are still up here with us. I'm grateful to get the opportunity to serve with you. Stepping into the arena always comes with some trepidation, especially now. You're opening your life, your ideas, and your name up to scrutiny. It is not a choice taken lightly, and so anybody who makes that choice, I commend them. And with that in mind, we had a much bigger election as well, and as I do after every election, I humbly request that we extend grace to one another and try to remember that we're all in this enterprise together. With that, Mrs. Amos, I would entertain a motion to move into closed session.
Mr. Mayor, I move that the Farmville Town Council convene in a closed session meeting pursuant to the Code of Virginia in accordance with the provisions of paragraph A.7 of section 2.2-3711, consultation with legal counsel and briefings by staff members or consultants pertaining to actual or probable litigation where such consultation or briefing in open meeting would adversely affect the negotiating or litigating posture of the public body.
Second.
Motion and second. Ms. McKay, can you get a roll call, please?
Mr. Parrott,
Yes.
Mr. Yolen,
Yes.
Mr. Hunter,
Yes.
Mr. Hardy,
Yes.
Mrs. Amos?
Yes.
Mr. Reed?
Yes.
Mr. Dwyer?
Yes.
Thank you. We will move into closed session. I don't anticipate any action coming out of it, but we'll see you on the other side. Thank you. Yes, ma'am, Ms. Amos.
Whereas the Farmville Town Council has convened a closed meeting on this date pursuant to an affirmative recorded vote in accordance with the provisions of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act, and whereas Section 2.2-3712 of the Code of Virginia requires a certification by the Farmville Town Council that such closed meeting was conducted in conformity with Virginia law. Now therefore be it resolved that the Farmville Town Council hereby certifies that to the best of each member's knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements by Virginia law were discussed in the closed meeting to which this certification resolution applies, and only such public business matters as were identified in the motion convening the closed meeting were heard, discussed, or considered by Farmville Town Council.
Second.
Motion and second, Ms. McKay.
Mr. Yolen,
Yes.
Mr. Hunter,
Yes.
Mr. Hardy,
Yes.
Mrs. Amos,
Yes.
Mr. Reed,
Yes.
Mr. Dwyer,
Yes.
Mr. Parrott.
Yes.
Thank you. At this time, I entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second. All in favor?
Here.
Those opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you.